G'day and welcome back to my channel. Look at the Amerigo Vespucci. It's been 3 years since I've worked on her, but I am back and I finally found some time to work on this kit and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. And even though the rigging has been a little bit fiddly, but the kit has a way to make it a little bit easier. I haven't actually got my horizontal rat lines in yet, but I'll discuss that. I'm going to be able to do that down the track probably in the next video. But I've done a whole lot of things. Yep, the hull kind of went green. Look at this snappy stand, and there's lots of stuff you can't see that I did, which I will explain in this video. So, does that all sound interesting? I hope so. Let's get on with it. Roll the music. This is where I left the Amerigo Vespucci a few years back. And I had done a lot. I mean, I got a wood deck on there. I got most of the deck fittings sort of, at least they dry fit. But the thing is, I can't really do much more until I sort out how I'm going to do the rigging. Because the rigging, either I add, like I did with the Nippon Maru, I add some photo etch aftermarket, right? Which is okay. You sort of can bend it to fit, well, literally. And that'll work. Or I could use cordage, because there is allowance in the kit for cordage, but you have to literally, let's see if I can get a piece off. It has to literally go through these little holes. So what you would do is, you would run your shrouds right down through the hole, up again, through, knot it, out, down the other side, and you'd run them all through, and that's kind of how they envisage the kit. This is why I haven't glued the decks in yet, because if I do that, that's great, but then I won't have the horizontal rat lines. Could I make a rat harp and use this cordage and actually put the horizontal rat lines in? Don't know. See how it goes. If it all fails, I'll go with the photo etch. With the ship-in pieces, I was able to address a few problems. Now, one of them was, I'll talk about the green hull in a sec, the pedestals here kept falling off. They were wobbly as anything, and they're just sitting on this very flimsy little stand. It's not very big. It's not really big enough for this ship. And so they just kept wobbling. I think it kept falling over. It was breaking deck pieces. I was getting absolutely fed up with it. So eventually I ended up putting in these little shims, right? And they have been glued in very securely with very undersized holes drilled in them, so that when I rotated and pushed in my pedestal, the pointy bit, right, for want of a better term, it's stuck hard now, and they are nice and firm. And they're really good. But this was still way too small. I just didn't like it. So I got the 3D printer going, and I thought, how hard is it to make a stand? Well, it's not actually that hard. But I think I kind of did a bit of overcompensating for my midlife crisis. That's good, but it's probably a touch too big. I think I need something between that, and I could probably try printing it in wood. So look for that in future installments. That's coming up. You may notice the deck, I think it's been looking a little too bright, a little bit too, a little bit too toyish. But the foredeck here, it's got a bit more light and shade in it. It's got a little bit of colour. In fact, if I pull it off and lay it side by side, right, you can see a difference in the colour. It is perceptibly darker. So what I'm going to do is, to achieve that, is just run some flat clear on. I mean, normally you'd use some varnish, but actually this came to hand and I thought I'll give it a try. And it's just Tamiya flat clear, and you can see straight away the colour change that's happening there. So I'm going to do all the decks with that, and it doesn't even matter if I sort of splash it over some of the deck fittings, because they're probably just plastic I haven't even painted, so it'll give them a nice flat look as well. So that's a solution to that little problem. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, let's talk about the blob in the room. Now, I've painted the lower hull green because at one stage the Amerigo Vespucci did have anti-fouling green on its bottom. And so I thought, I like that. It breaks up to black. And I did the screws. They're in there. It's twin screw, but they're one after each other. So they're in there. They look rather nice. I hadn't really used my life colour green since the nipple Amerigo. It had a green bottom, although I think this one's come up with a slightly different shade. But anyhow, so the bottle was shook, and it seemed okay. Luckily, I always run everything through a sieve, a cocktail sieve, right? The cheapest chips to buy, and the beauty is that always, gets the greeblies out of your paint, which is just as well because the Steiner's primer that I put on, that had blobs in it. They disappeared. They got filtered out. And then when I went to put this in, look at this. The mother of a blob from hell. Yeah, couldn't believe it. Giant blob. So there was a little bit of paint left. There was enough paint left to get this nice green on my hull. So that's going to look really nice with the black and white stripes above it, and then all my lovely decks. I've begun the rigging, and I have actually put the rigging on here. Well, the shrouds at least, right? And some backstays. And it's all one continuous thing that kind of gets looped around underneath there and then sticky taped in. Now, I did have to put in a temporary forward stay here, and that's to stop the mast from being pulled back by all the shrouds and the backstays, because they will tend to make your mast droop back. Normally, when I'm rigging ships, we would have all the decks in and we were rigging, off channel boards and everything, and you would actually run your proper forward stays and tie them off. So I've had to actually just do a sort of temporary one here to the bow, try and stop that from falling backwards. Because that's pretty tight now. When I let that go, it's probably going to pull a little bit, but at least I know if I attach a forward stay to it, it's going to hold in place. Anyhow, one thing with this is, if you look at the instructions, I've done something different, as always, yes. Now, if you have a look at their instructions, there are 6 holes, and they're saying put 3 to the lowest little platform, 2 to the middle platform, and then 1 right up there. So these ones, these last 3 are backstays. These 3 here are shrouds, but you have more shrouds than you do have backstays. I mean, I know they've compromised to make it a model. So what I've done instead is I have 5 shrouds, which makes sense. So there's 5 lines going up to my platform there, and that's going to be nice. And when I eventually get my rat harp tool working to this, because I'm going to have to make a special one. I did print one out the right size, and that will sort of fit, but because they're inboard, right, they're actually inside the gunnel. That's completely different to things that are outboard that I can put my rat harp on. So I'm going to have to make a special rat harp to do that. So no rat lines today, but we do have shrouds. Anyhow, so I've got 5, that's great. And then what I've done is I've just run 1 backstay to the midpoint here. So I had to drill a 7th hole there. Yeah, that hole's mine, which was easy enough to do because this is all open. And I've run the final backstay, which goes all the way up to the top of the mast. So that completes that piece of rigging. That works well, and I'll show you how I've done that in a sec. But what I want to show you now is a bit of an experiment here. Now, this is the aft deck, right? And both the fore and the aft deck, you can see the dead eyes, right? You can't see the dead eyes here. They're all hidden behind the gunnel, so I didn't worry about them at all. But here you can see dead eyes, and dead eyes at this scale are going to be really tiny. In fact, these are only like 2 millimeters. These are beads. And seeing as I use a beading needle to do my rigging, that makes it really easy. So they're trying to simulate that, but I do need something to, they need to have a little spacer in there of a couple of millimeters long. They should look like that, and they have a little white tube. The actual ship is like that. The dead eyes, well, they're not actually wooden dead eyes on the real Amerigo Vespucci. It's more modern. It's actually a mechanism that allows you to tighten, right? So it's all very mechanical and it's very metal. It's not wood at all. So I need something that'll space it out. I haven't got any tubing at all in my stash anywhere that would actually fit there. So I'm going to have to think about that for another day. But for now, purpose of this video, I'm going to rig them up like that. So they just have 2 little marshmallows at the bottom. And you'll have to use your imagination. Now you can see I've just temporarily put those 2 together. And as you see, they come out the bottom, they go up, they go through the little holes that I had made in the little fighting platforms there, and they will thread through a little hole I made in the last video inside the mast join there and go back down again. So it's a continuous loop thing. I'm all ready to start on this aft section, right? And I've put in some very temporary forward stays just to hold that mast tight. So as I pull back with these shrouds, and backstays, the whole thing will tighten up and hopefully it'll all come out in the wash. Won't need this for the moment. That's the front section, so I'll put that out of the way. Okay, I've already prepared my cordage, this is 0.25 or 0.3 millimeter. Now, if you want to work out what size cordage you need at any time, and we could even do it for this ship, you just need the diameter of your mast. In this case, that is a 3 millimeter wide mast. To work out the size of your forward stays, they are 1/6, so they need to be 0.5 millimeter size thread cotton, all right? Which is what that is, or cordage. And then you halve that again for your shrouds. So half of 0.5 is 0.25. So about a 0.25, well, I think this is more like a 0.3. It looks like the Airfix 0.3. I have put a little stopper on already. That's just a tiny bit of sort of spare sprue that I've got lying around, a little tube, and I've tied that off. That's to stop the whole thing from pulling through when I do my very first run. It'll all make sense in a sec. Now, how much do I need? Well, I'm going from there to there, and I'm going to be going quite a few times because I've got quite a few runs to make. There are 6 holes, of which I'll use the first 4 for my ratline shrouds, right? So they go to that hole. And then I'll use the second last one as one backstay up here, and then the last one is the final backstay to the top. So that's how I'm going to do it. So I need 6 runs. So I need that 6 times. Okay, and then I'll need probably a bit for tying and mucking around and fumbling and swearing and everything. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that'll only do one side, so I'll need double that length, right, to do the other side. So that's easy enough to do. We just double the cordage. Right, so that's double that length. Then I'm going to need the ones that go to the midpoint, so I need 2 of those, 1 and 2, and then I'm going to need the really long ones that go from the deck all the way to the top of the mast. So they'll need to be that long, and I'll need 2 of those. So 1, 2, okay, and then you need more for the knotting and the faffling and everything in case I've missed one. So again, always add heaps more. It's rather, you're better off having too much than too little, because otherwise you have too little, you're not going to be able to finish this. You'd either have to start all over again, or you're going to have to start putting some knots in somewhere, which is not a good look. Okay, big eye beading needle, does what it says in the tin. You just drop your cord through, drag it down to the bottom. That's it. No knots. We're ready to go. So that's one end. Now you've got to be careful because you're running quite a long piece here. And when I was doing some work before, the thing was so long that it flopped over the side and it got caught in my sprue cutters and that shredded my thread, because this is a polyester thread. Even if it was cotton, it just would have shredded it and ruined it. So we shall start at the very beginning. Now you want to start forward. Always start forward, do lower. This is a thing with the rigging. Do the lower stuff first, then work your way to the higher stuff, because the higher stuff always sits at the top of the lower stuff. So I'll need the very forward one. And my wombat eyes. Lucky I've got the beading needle, I can poke it around. And thread that through. And we pull that up nice and tight. And as you can see, the stopper's stopping going through. Now, remember to put the beads on, Harry. Yes. Forgot to do that on the first take, didn't you? Yeah, you bloody wombat. Okay, so we need 2 of these to simulate the dead eyes. And being a beading needle, these are beads. It should work. It does. It does. Now, first thing is we're going to go up through that fighting platform. So we just need to find the little hole. There it is. Push up and through, and what I've done is I've drilled out all my holes before I started, just to make sure that paint hadn't accumulated in them. So I ran the drill through, just a little 0.5 millimeter drill bit on my tiny little pin vise drill, and so up they go. There we go. That's our first emulation of dead eyes. Now It's a good idea to always make sure there's no knots. So that's what I'm doing. I'm pulling that back through, back to my beading needle, and now we go across through the hole in the middle of the mast. Alright, so we are through there now, and what we need to do is go down the platform, which is a lot easier to do from the top. So we just find that hole, through we go. And that's through. Okay, we're nearly there now. Need to remember to put my beads on here before I do any more. So a couple of beads. Got to find the holes. One. Two, and gently thread those down without upsetting the beading needle. And now that's through, the last part of this pair is to go into that first hole there, pull it all the way through, and voila, we have a pair of shrouds, and each one of them has pretend dead eyes. So all I have to do now is repeat that again and again. I'll loop up this side through the second hole, and again put my beads on through the platform, through the hole, do that. And I'll do that until I have all 4 shrouds to there. Then I repeat the process again, but this time I take the second last line to here and the last line all the way to there. Just threaded on the final 2 plastic dead eyes. Actually, I checked my pictures, and this is actually the bit between the dead eyes. The dead eyes, not that there are any, they're really just clamps, they're black. So I'm going to have to make 2 little loops that are black. So this final one I've already glued in the top here, and I've let that set while I was sort of messing about. So through the final hole, gets a lot easier as you're down to this one. That's it. Now, as you can see, there's a piece of tape under there, which I've been using. Halfway through, I found it was a good idea to actually get some tension on the whole thing, because it does tend to sort of unravel. There's so many lines. Now at this point, I CA glue in, which is what I did halfway through. Dollop of CA glue there, and I pull that nice and tight, and I'll use a clamp to put a bit of weight on it, and I'll just tension that up a bit, eyeball all my lines. Yep, they're looking good. Okay, that is to all intents and purposes done. I'll let the CA glue do its job, then I'll trim off all the waste and we can assemble the ship. Final assembly time, and I'll probably get rid of these temporary forward stays. No need for those. So they, a few little knots there I've got to remove. And you can see the tensioning thing I was worried about. That's how it will be with the mast fully upright, but let it go. Yes, they sort of go a bit Mr. Floppy, and that's definitely leaning back too far. I mean, you need a little bit often of a lean back, probably 3 to 5 degrees of mizzen mast. Not that much, but anyhow, that'll be fine. So we'll pop that on. On she goes. And yeah, so I'll run a forward stay from there to there, and that'll tighten that up very nicely. And this one, I've already cut away everything, so it can go on there. And it's suffering again from Mr. Floppy. So this is what a forward stay does, is it keeps all those things in place, in check. So again, that needs to go there. So I might actually pop a couple of forward stays on so we can see how this should look. There you have it. that's what the rigging will sort of look like. I've got some very temporary forward stays in there. They're not exactly accurate, but they're close enough to hold everything in shape, and that's tightened up all those backstays. So now that's the look we're going to get. So I'm pretty happy with that, very happy with that. All right, that's it for now. I will get on with a lot more of this next time. But look, if you enjoyed the video, boom, you know what to do. Hit the buttons. Get knotted now. Yeah, those are the buttons. That's what you got to do. And if you can, buy me a curry, because this knotting and this rigging gets me very hungry. I need my curries. I do. All right. Until next time, it's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini. No, Bask, you're not in this one. You slept through it all. Yeah. See you next time.